Amazing, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started within a few minutes. Give some people some time to jump between calls or get on board. Where's everyone joining from? I think that's always a common question to ask, but it shows where everyone's spread across. Texas, there we go. That was a quick one. Florida, Troy, Greece.
Greece, wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Didn't
Hi,
know that was
Greg.
common. Poland, wow.
I will,
Ecuador.
Donald. I'll say hi to Jared.
Dubai, we've got a international crowd.
Yeah, you're multilingual, right, John? Did we say that at the beginning of the call
Yeah,
for you?
sorry guys, I'm gonna have to drop.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just in case you missed, we'll give everyone a few more minutes to join up. We'll get started here in a couple. Great to have you all here, and I'll give a bit of an intro once we get going.
Ooh, poll starting. I'll answer on my end. Oh, I can't
You
vote.
might get blocked.
I can't vote. I'm in the 20 plus range, so that's we'll add +1 to that category.
Yeah. Hey, Frankie. Awesome. This is looking good. All right. Well, maybe one more minute. Um, Attendees are still trickling in, but I'm sure there's going to be lots of comments and questions, and I want to make sure we have enough time for those. Um, Team Misha, we're good to go, I think. Everyone, hopefully thumbs up, good to go. Sounds good. All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Excited to have John here. We're going to walk through iGUIDE's CAD deliverables, where they fit into the process, answer some of your questions that you have to make sure it's not a black box and everyone knows what you're getting, how you're getting it, when you're getting it. So for you who haven't met me yet, my name is Brad Fackoury. I lead our customer experience teams, customer success, and customer support. You might know me through my moonlighting on the forum, maybe through a support escalation, but hopefully you know me as a partner helping trying to unblock your business and maximize the value of iGUIDE. But John, if
Yep,
you wanted to introduce yourself.
absolutely. I'm John McKenna. I'm founder of MC3 Design and MC3 Build. I'm an architect based out of the DC area. We do design, architectural design up and down the East Coast of the US, residential, commercial, industrial, you name it. And we do local custom residential design build work. So we use iGUIDE across the whole spectrum.
Yeah, amazing. And I thought that was probably a good place to start. So we can get into our deliverables and what we offer and what they include. But I thought the context of where they fit into a typical project life cycle, and I know you do different project types as well. So maybe kind of talk to how you're using iGUIDE today at different stages or various stages of your projects.
Absolutely. So depending on which hat we're wearing, we are both the architectural practice as well as the construction service. Most often, we're using our iGuide system when we have an existing condition to start. So we're going out. Our team offers a pretty standard design agreement up front where we go out and we do existing condition surveys. We generate, obviously, a full existing condition plan, elevation, setup based on the project scope, and hand that deliverable off to the client rapidly within the first 24 hours. On our end, we're generating Revit models. So we have our simple template. We get our feedback of the deliverable from iGUIDE, send that out to the client, generate our existing condition drawings off of the Revit deliverable, and take it from there. When we get into the construction side, and even if we're just serving as the architect and construction administration, we'll also be going out and doing interval scans, typically at rough-ins and at final completion, to kind of have a series of scans to show the series of information and get a great X-ray of what that finished condition is in the rough-in phase.
So throughout your different processes, are you always getting the same deliverable, like a base iGUIDE, but you're also getting more advanced deliverables too, depending on what stage you're at?
Definitely. So it depends on the client type, but more often than not, we're doing a premium iGuide package throughout at any phase. But on the front end, we're doing a add-on with the Revit package. We'll most often be doing Revit plus an RCP. There's obviously been new additions been added recently. We've been playing with lots of the new features as well. But there are projects where we're working with other contractors, we're just wearing our architect hat where the premium is all we need. We use it internally just as a test. We'll have our own office scanned. I think we've scanned it 3 times, and we don't need the Revit file there. We'll just do a basic or even the Radix file just as a practice test to kind of run through everything, make sure the scans make sense and how you go about the series of rooms to scan.
Yeah. And you had a couple examples, didn't you, queued up?
Absolutely. Yeah, so a good one we have, let's share my screen here. This kind of sold us on the process, is a gorgeous penthouse. This is actually getting renovated in Washington, D.C. And I could not imagine manually field measuring these conditions. We've got curves on angles, on projections. We're all over the place. So it was fantastic being able to have iGUIDE generate our existing plan set. We did a building permit submission for some renovations. This is a commercial building, so we had quite a bit panning around here to show you. We had to find all of our sprinkler heads, and they're kind of tucked away. Our registers are tucked away. Being able to get RCPs generated off of this, get these existing conditions with, again, these small curves to a detailed level that's applicable to a building permit submission. I could not even estimate the time it would take to manually do that. I would
Hmm.
not have been able to do it without iGuides. This really led us into the process, and was a great package, great communication tool for us with other clients as well to show them what we generate, what our design agreement entails, and what you can expect from that.
Right. Just quickly, okay, you can see perfect. Some people just commented they couldn't see, but I can see it
Oh,
fine, and others
okay.
can. Yeah, that's amazing. That's great to see. And I do want to just say too, for the audience, it is a large and varying audience with different skill sets and experience with the deliverables and iGuide in general. Some are very technical and, like John, deeply integrated into the design stages, and some are just trying to enter in and trying to better understand. So we'll try to balance all, but if you guys do have questions, that'd be greatly, you can dump it in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely diving into the most complex. Some of
Hmm.
our standard ones are, you'd be able to do with the tape measure. Happy to be back speaking with iGuide, but we replaced 2 people on site with a laptop on a projector scan with a tape measure, doing all of our existing condition surveys of especially commercial spaces, taking a substantial amount of time on the larger square footage. Now we send out one of our guys with one of our stations, and in an hour to 2 hours, we've got the full existing condition survey set, and we know we've got reliable data. Most important, it avoids our return trips. When we're doing any of these, maybe we didn't think we needed to worry about MEP on our initial project scope, and then the client says, hey, can you take on whatever other series, or the project scope changes? We don't even have to go back out and resurvey or make sure our documentation was accurate. It's all collected in that same initial scan.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what are you providing to your customers along the way? Are you giving them access to the iGuide? Are you, when it comes to like some of the deliverables, um, are you putting them on a template? Are you giving them PDFs, or how do you share information with them?
Yeah, so we pretty much let everyone know up front our process. We'll get out to a job site based on our availability, and as soon as we get our initial scan package from iGuide, we share that PDF document, and the iGuide link. We'll reformat everything, kind of make it user friendly, and drop it into an email template, and let them know our follow up from there is the existing condition drawings going onto our template. I'll switch screens here real quick. And just as an example of this project, got too many things open. Let's
Yeah.
go to, here we go, Bluebeam. Basically taking the same thing. This is the floor plan of that same model, dropped in very little modification from what iGUIDE's generating in the Revit piece, put onto our standard title block and templates and generate from there. But you can see, most important, the RCP, the details we didn't have, and we'll obviously go based on project scope from there onto what our demolition and proposed drawings look like. But the existing condition drawings come based on the availability about a week or so afterwards. We just let the client know it's a great touch point for us. They see us on site, we give them the initial, here's what we got from that camera. You'll see our follow up once we have the existing condition model generated.
So it's a way for you to kind of show that you're engaged, you're working on it as you progress through that beginning design process.
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. If anyone does have any questions too, feel free to put them in the QA or in the chat. What I thought then would be kind of good is to touch on our deliverables a little bit. Essentially, the variety that we have in the AEC space, talk to a bit of the details, the level of development that we use as well. But first, um, oh, John was asking about measurements or dimensions and maybe some of your pieces there.
On this existing condition. So that's a very good question based on jurisdiction. We're in the DC area, so DOB is notorious for some challenging pieces on accessibility. So our existing conditions do not show dimension, only are proposed.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
And then Mark was asking, are you producing your own Revits? But you were saying that you at least use ours for a starting point.
Correct. Yes. So we'll get the generic walls and all of the pieces from iGUIDE. We'll populate that into our own Revit template and we'll kind of manipulate from there. So depending on the project scope as well, we may start off on a schematic design level simply using the iGUIDE model. But as we start to develop and put in floor assemblies, our families and systems, our standard template goes in from there.
Yeah, amazing. And maybe last one from Bernard here, and then we can jump into some stuff is the greatest challenge using iGuide and how do you adjust for that? I thought that's a good question.
Sure.
Limitations
Challenge.
even.
Yeah, limitations would be line of sight. You pretty much have to be able to access it if you want to be able to scan it and model it. It's same for, manually measuring, but if you're building a model off of it, I'm not often the one on site that's going to be scanning it. So if I'm going to be drawing it afterwards, I need to be cognizant of what was scanned, what was not scanned, and how to fill in those blanks. Obviously, the LiDAR is not going to capture something behind a door. If we have a locked area, we need to be aware of that. Um, there's really, I can't even picture large challenges. It's fairly straightforward, especially we started off on, Brad, I'm sorry, I forgot the original system name, but
Yeah.
we had the first scan system and then went to the R1. And now with the R1 just mapping itself, there's very little challenge.
I think one thing we talked about before, John, and this is what I'll get into too, just about the level of detail and how deep it goes. You're not cutting granite off the drawings, or you were even saying about some of the finer details like fabric and all like those types of things.
Yep. Yeah, and this project I shared, the penthouse was a great detail. We're looking at a building permit submission here. This was purely an architectural scope. Were we doing full general contracting, detail high level finishes on this? We would be doing some additional field measurements and verification with this as a phenomenal starting point. But especially when you get into those intricate pushes and pulls in trim details and curves and wall finishes, there's definitely a level of finish you'd want some additional verification for.
Yeah. Amazing. So a few things and a few questions coming in. We do want this to be casual. We want it to be pointed. Um, Let me first just share my screen. One piece that I want to show you is just where to find information. So first, I got a bunch of tabs open here because I want to highlight a few things. Just our homepage is a good resource to start. Um, Always go to the industries and architectural and remodeling. There's some content there that you can use. There's downloaded samples that you can have and drawing samples that you can have and download and use and play with and share with your customers.
I got a highlight on that one.
Oh yeah, yeah, there you go. Um, And then, of course, some of the different deliverables we have, and you can always download samples. So if you're working with a customer, if you're wanting to understand the fidelity of the models we provide, you can go in there and actually grab the samples and use them and play with them or share them with your customer. And there's different things all across that you can go to. So wanted to highlight that. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is just our help desk. Here you'll find things on SLAs or delivery times. You'll find information on pricing, and then you'll also find information on our packages and add-ons. So this goes into the nitty-gritty. So if I click on CAD floor plans, it highlights the different things that are included and not included. But most of our advanced deliverables also have what we call as a drafting standards doc. So if I click on that, it actually goes into the nitty gritties of what is included and what is not included on each one of those more advanced deliverables. So if you really want to get into it, that's a really good place to look. But I wanted to kind of start by showcasing that stuff. So SLAs are on there, pricing is on there, and then I do want to share. Maybe I put together or I borrowed someone here's slides. Roman, thank you. Um, a couple just overview pieces that I thought were good to talk to. Um, so first, just what we're offering, the full deliverable suite, and as John kind of highlighted, there's different things for different purposes. He's going for the RCP and the Revit model, but depending on your process or your customers' needs, I kind of see two different types of customers from our perspective. One, someone like John who is using the deliverables himself into his workflow. So he's ordering what he needs to complete his process and, getting to various degrees depending on the need of that project and how far into it he wants us to help him get into. We also have customers who are just the capture pro and providing the capture services for a customer like John and delivering John with that on-site documentation then that an architect can use to complete their project. So we do offer a variety of packages, including those plotted drawings with our advanced drawing package, which has some of the PDF outputs that could get someone started. But six main deliverables, a lot of different combinations. That was the change we did last year is we broke up the set packages and made it more a la carte. So that way you can order exactly what you need along the way.
Yeah, Brett, that's a good point as well. Some of our drawing, more often than not, it's self-use that obviously we're providing the design services. But we have had projects where the only deliverable needed was for a third-party engineer that was under our contract. In which case, most recently, the advanced drawing package has been great, and we don't need ourselves to be drafting in Revit, and our subs are using CAD. We're able to use the plotted PDF for our own use and then provide the CAD that usually we would export from our own Revit model. But if we don't need the model, you obviously have that flexibility.
Yeah, and we also have customers um, who also has their own drafting capabilities in-house, and depending on their backlog or queue, they may take just a DWG and build on top of it,
Yep.
or they may take the full Revit and as far as possible to save them time and springboard into the project so they can process a bit more. So again, it all depends on your flow and how to use it, but there's different things that we can offer along the way. Um, just to touch on obviously the capture system, but then the drafting normalization. So the Plan XR1, our latest camera, the point cloud accuracy is quite great. And that's the raw point cloud data that then gets interpreted and we normalize the dimensions when we go through the drafting. So this, someone was commenting on our rounding convention and how we show dimensions. So that's something that I talked to a little bit later, but a wall is measured to the nearest half inch. So 4 inch or 4.5. And when we're looking at walls, we do think about North American building standards and lumber sizes when drafting. But we also always provide the raw point cloud data for fine tuning as well. I did want to talk to, and this is one of the biggest questions we get or areas of question from our customers and their customers is just where do we sit in with the LOD level? So we say we're LOD 200. We're a bit higher than that on some of the things that we do. But for people who are newer, really what that means is just it's modeled with approximate geometry. You can see it, position it, use it, and build off of. But it is not something that is ideal for fabrication or construction. You should always independently verify some of those dimensions if you're going to cut granite, or order windows or whatever it may be, is you should always just take that level. So just kind of talking to that, just very quickly, some of the things you aren't getting, which is a good highlight, like the wall assemblies, the insulation, the material specs aren't included. Structural beams, joists, MEP routing is a common question that we get, but we don't include that in any of our drawings. But we give you everything that you need, the window and door types, the size and placement, the ceiling types, and call-offs like that. So just wanted to highlight that. I think that's one of the biggest questions that we get often. And I think it's really important to talk to.
Mhm. Real quick on
Um,
that one, Brad, if
yeah,
we can go back, the some of those pieces, actually, so what's not included,
yeah,
the MEP in particular, we've created our own standard of tags. We go through and ensure that our MEP does not actually go on site anymore. They use our scan, and we take detailed photographs of the electrical panel, any tags that are visible on furnaces, any MEP systems, and we tag those in our scans. Obviously, the scan is not giving you pipe sizing, but if you're taking accurate photos, most of this can be done. As well as the beams, where we're taking calipers with a photo of any of our steel dimensions that are visible and just ensure that we can avoid even sending our subs out with a detailed initial scan.
yeah. So you're really leveraging it in different ways just to save time,
Yeah. Yep.
um, and kind of get you further into that process. I'm just trying to scan through some of the questions here. Um, Kind of talking on some of the things. Someone was asking about standard and premium and kind of how that shows up in some of the deliverables as the base. So if you do get the CAD floor plan, the DWG floor plan, that's the deliverable that will change based on that base package that you're ordering. A lot of it comes into the fixtures and furniture that is included, or the fixtures that are included in there. So this kind of just talks to some of those things that are different between the standard and the premium, and what you're getting within that DWG floor plan. I don't really be added to the drawings. Natalia, I see your question there about identifying windows and doors to the drawings. So we do have that window and door summary, which it is AI generated, but it's a great approximation and a great start. We are looking at ways to identify the windows on that. So of course it's easier traditionally, and just on our side, just so you can understand context, is the majority of rooms that are measured and that are summarized only may have one or two openings in there, and it's easy to articulate what the difference one is. So that's why it wasn't prioritized originally, but we are looking at that and making sure that that's a clear list for you guys. And then one other thing just on the 3D model, because that's another one as well. One of the biggest areas of questions or wish list items is complex ceilings. Obviously, and probably John, you can talk to this, that would be a massive time saver if you have a complex architectural ceiling, whether it's domed or curved or has a bunch of beams or millwork. We don't draft the complex ceilings. If you're capturing with the Planex device and you're getting LiDAR, it is all mapped and it's available, so you could get spacings and heights through the point cloud data. If you open that up in AutoCAD, that's a great place to go. But our 3D model really is that starting point or springboard into the process that John kind of highlighted here. It's a good place to go to start you getting down that process. We often get asked about how it works with other platforms. So we can output in Revit. It's native in Revit. All the layerings will work as expected. AIA layering and naming conventions is what we use, sorry. And we also make sure when you get a DWG that it's working in CAD as well in AutoCAD. Some of the other platforms can open DWGs, but sometimes you can lose the fidelity in the layers that we create. And sometimes I know for DesignFlex 2020 or Syncly, when you import the DWG, it's just a flat image and you then have to draw on top. So depending on the platform, you may have some limitations, but it is DWG and it should be imported into a variety of different tools along the way. Um, so I kind of want to, I'll maybe stop after this slide just to talk to, and then we can get into some of the nitty-gritty details or some of the questions you guys have. Just the advanced drawing package and what's included in that. It's pretty comprehensive. It's designed for someone who needs to pass it off to their customer along the way. It's a comprehensive package. It includes the CAD floor plans. It includes the raw point cloud data, both horizontal and vertical. So if you're capturing vertical data or elevation data, that's all included. It includes the dimension plan, and then of course the full plotted package, which is 8.5 by 11 plotted drawing package, which includes all the deliverables, the dimension plan, and the elevation, the point cloud elevation plan to get you going. Hopefully that's clear. Oop. Um, yeah. Um, so going through some of the questions, Misha, I'm trying to look to anyone else. What's the difference between, so we got some of that difference between premium and standard packages. Architectural firms that does not have Revit capabilities or even 3D capabilities, but would like to have 2D interior elevations. So that is a really great question. We don't offer interior elevation drawings. Um, it's something we've considered in the past from your application. We also have people who work in commercial spaces that are doing decals, where that interior elevation helps them build on top of that. So it's on our list of things to consider and things to expand into. But we can always unpack that and see how we can help you along the way. We do include, like in your case, I would say it is a 3D model gives you everything you need because then you can export those views on the inside. But that could be higher fidelity than what you're looking for. So PDF scale is set. Order PDF to scale without ordering the DWG. So that's one thing to talk to about the iGUIDE floor plan, schematic floor plan drawing in PDF and a DWG package. So the DWG goes through a more rigorous process when it comes to what you're getting from a PDF output. So the DWG is a bit more robust, it's more accurate, and it's designed to have floor to floor alignment. I think that's a really critical part. When you order an iGUIDE, we align the floors independently, but we don't do a holistic view of that building. So if you're using the DXF or those floor plan outputs from the iGUIDE, you could be missing some of the accuracy that comes from the DWG, where we do floor to floor alignment, which is critical in a lot of places, especially if you're doing a stacked building. So that's good to note. And you can just get the advanced drawing package will give you that baseline into that PDF deliverable. Having a 2% measurement uncertainty. Marie Spurn, I was asking about accuracy. John, maybe you could talk to how you approach the dimensions or accuracy within iGUIDE and how you're leveraging it or updating in your process. If you're still there. Hopefully everyone else can still hear me. Okay, perfect. John might have hit some lag here. Thank you for that quick feedback. So someone asked Melinda about ceiling heights. So one, just so you know that our plotted drawings and our RCPs have ceiling height takeoff. So if there's beams or bulkheads or elements within the floor plan, we always do independent takeoffs for those change in heights along the way. So the RCP is a really great way to get beam heights or feature heights within the ceiling. So I would always point you towards that. Our other deliverables will have a ceiling call out, which is typically, I forget if it's the lowest point or the average point of the ceiling height taken from those floor plan verticals. Um, from a fully furnished project, yeah, I agree. Hand measuring is a bit of a nightmare. Obviously, we want to be able to see as much of the walls as possible and interface with the walls. If there's a lot of clutter, more assumptions are made, but typically we find that the LiDAR system can capture what is needed to draft a floor plan accurately, even if there is a lot of clutter. But I always make sure that the LiDAR plane is as clear as possible and can get into all the nitty-gritties in the corners of the rooms to help us create those boxes. There he is. Oh, he's coming from his phone. Perfect.
We lost power, so at least I still have cell service here.
Okay. That's great. I was wondering, there was a question about accuracy. I'm wondering how you leverage that, knowing that we're LOD 200. How are you using it in your process, and how do you approach it when you're getting stuff back from iGUIDE?
Sure. So it definitely depends on project scope. Um, I'd say most applicable. I could go.
Oh, Now he's completely shut down. That's okay. All good there. Um, different pricing scale if a space is less detailed? That's actually a really good question. So we are in the process of exploring large building pricing, which will give you different tiers and mechanisms if you're doing larger buildings, warehouses, that type of thing. So keep your eyes open on that, and we'll hopefully come up with some announcements on that soon. But our pricing scales with our iGUIDE. So as you get in up to bigger processes, that's where the pricing discount goes. It doesn't scale on detail. Um, we still put in the time and the energy and effort to get there. But I understand your perspective there. Hi, John.
Sorry, I'm back.
We'll, we'll give you a second. You're back. If
So
you,
sorry about that.
yeah, did you get power back?
Did, yes, it flickered out, but looks like I'm online.
Yeah, sweet.
Um, but the question, could you repeat the question? Sorry, it was
Yeah, just
about detail.
around accuracy of the iGuide and how you use that. You obviously go to permits, which is where and I know you don't include the dimensions necessarily in your plans, but how do you approach iGuide or how do you take in or interpret the dimensions we're providing in your process?
Sure. So we absolutely do provide the dimensions. The existing condition in that particular set was irrelevant because it was all demolished. So in that case, the demo plan is showing what's removed, and the proposed shows all of our dimensions. Existing condition scans to the half inch. The only time that we're looking at anything in further detail is true code compliance. When we're looking at accessibility, we will initially be double checking anything off of the actual iGuide scan. We'll be using the measurement tools and verifying anything that we need to there. We've used Stitch before. I don't know if we've gone into that at all about, how you can pull some of the data from your scan, just to get a better idea of what that point cloud information entails. So there are means to go into the true details if it's necessary. For our uses, especially in design build, and in the residential focus, a half inch tolerance is more than adequate, especially it's essentially a quarter inch tolerance that you're sliding on either side. That's beyond the accuracy necessary for coordination with our subcontractors. Aside from having a window vendor come out and they're going to double check existing window openings anyway, the dimensions have never provided an issue for us.
Yeah, that's actually good practical context. I think fit for purpose, right? And what you're using it for is the biggest thing. We
Yeah,
aren't a 3D scanner, and there's different applications for different things. But as you said, for your process and where it fits in, it does exactly what you need it to do.
exactly. Yep.
Um, Bernard, I see you about measuring types, and I can get into that if needed. And they just updated with the new viewer, so I can walk through those closer to the tail end. Terry, you had a good point about a small room like bathrooms find it hard to get a good scan that you can take measurements from later.
Mhm.
So that's a good touch point on scan requirements. So when I'm doing AEC scans, at the bare minimum, doesn't matter how big the room is, I always make sure I have at least two scans in each room. And that gives us the measurement data and all measurement modes when using the viewer or when our drafting team is building out that model. It gives us a lot more data to build from and be more accurate from. So in that suggestion, I would always advise you to try to get at least two measurements, even in the smallest rooms, even if they're shifted by a foot. I think that's amazing. So that's how I would approach that.
I try
Um,
and do similar. I'll take the footprint of the tripod and use that as my movement, just in case you need to see something that would not be visible directly below the camera. And even if you're not seeing those points in the scan, you can open. I've used Stitch data for that to pull in and look at our different camera angles.
Yeah, and I even think about the scan that you showed. So another thing that I really think about often is making sure I get into the corners of each room. And when there's bulkheads or build outs on the
Mhm.
walls or architectural designs, I'm making sure I'm getting all the corners of those. Otherwise, we could be missing the finer details of that corner point. So I always just make sure when I'm looking on the app, I'm always getting into all the corners, as that's the basis for the drawing to come off of.
Yeah. And bathrooms are definitely one of the most challenging. Mirrors can get a little tricky when you're trying to lay things out. And we've dropped the camera into a tub. Just, shower curtain gets in the way. You're missing some information there. Place it in there. You know where your faucet is, where your controls are. Just get the extra scan just in case.
Yeah. I think that's great. That's another thing too I do. So there's when I think about scanning, I think about the virtual tour. So I think about the customer experience and having a nice clean walkthrough at a consistent height. But then I am also doing the same thing. I'm changing the height or I'm taking it off. So if it's in a closet, I know I want to measure in that closet, I'll take it off and put it on the top shelf or on the floor to get all the walls. So feel free to do that, and
Yep.
balance those types of scans.
This is a great example. I needed to capture the curve of these cabinets. So
Yeah.
this is the camera drop down sitting at the lowest level possible. And here capturing the same thing. You can see my multiple points together here. And as I come back here, I'm back at the higher elevation, capturing where the column is and going over those cabinets. So looking at the scan, there are quite a number of locations of the scans, but that information is used to generate the existing condition drawings accurately.
Yeah, so I think that's good context. Knowing what it's going to be used for downstream, knowing that that has to be dimensioned and modeled in some way, shape, or form. So you
Mhm.
made sure you got LiDAR to hit that. So I think that's a good practice is knowing the use case downstream. So if you're a capture pro who's documenting for someone else, knowing what they're using it for and what information is important to them, you could do the same things. And I would go up and down for the uppers and lower cabinets here is I'm always changing my height, and I think that's what we're seeing here.
Yep, yeah, and as you mentioned with granite, this curve itself on the
Mm.
actual countertop is not captured. To me,
Yeah.
that was not a critical piece. So it's not something that we focused on. I think that would be one of the more challenging things to try and capture. But we wanted to see, to me, I wanted the structure. I wanted to make sure that I showed where this post was. I wanted to show how it tied into the countertop as well. There's my carry case next to it as well.
Mhm.
But we captured all of that information and made sure that we had multiple views to be able to get visual accuracy on all of the intricate ceiling details and trays that are dropping out.
Yeah. Um, okay, just a couple more questions here. John, when do you use vertical, or not you, John, but John D online, when do you use vertical scans? Great question, and it's something we wanted to touch on here. So vertical scans give us accurate elevation data. It's a building slice or a profile of a room or a feature or of a building. So that's when you turn your Planix camera, and I should have had one here. I'm surprised I don't. On its side, so the LiDAR, instead of doing the floor plan and interacting with the walls, you turn it 90 degrees and perpendicular to the floor. And then the LiDAR is interacting with the ceiling, the walls, and the floor in an accurate way. So we use those to build 3D models. We use them for getting all the height and elevation data of each room. We use it on the exteriors to give us the height of each floor and the windows and the ceiling and the roof lines. So that helps us create elevation data. One thing that you can use it for as well is on the RCP. So the reflective ceiling plan does not require a vertical scan, but if you have a high ceiling and pendant lighting or things that are hanging from the ceiling, if you do a vertical scan, it actually interacts with all of those things, and then our drafting team can accurately place them. And especially in bigger spaces and bigger rooms, when we're drafting the RCP in a tight, normal residential setting, you can see all the features you can get. You can measure where they are from the walls and get them really close. But in bigger spaces, it's harder to place all those within a couple inches. So having a vertical that hits them helps there. But vertical scans are required for our exterior elevations and our 3D models. Um, and any kind of exterior scan. So if we're doing a roof plan as well, getting the roof pitch helps us build those all out from the ground, where we would do exterior or vertical scans on the outside. But those are the biggest deliverables where we'd be looking for vertical scans.
Just one more
Yep.
glance back here. The floor plan, obviously, this is a single unit, but our vertical scans, they're a little disorienting to me to start scanning this way. But you can see the use of this to capture the information in this plane, to know that there is a rise in the ceiling and the actual curtain structure is tucked in here. So that's all accurately, that's what generates our accurate RCP.
Hmm. I'm just gonna see if I can quickly open it up, and I meant to do it before.
Oh, definitely stairs as well. That's for us in terms of a code perspective. I treat it as an interior section. If you're trying to do anything from an architectural standpoint, a design side, you're cutting a section with your iGUIDE LiDAR scan. So if you're focused on code, elevation changes, anything like that, we'll do vertical scans in the exterior, going up to front porches. We'll even use it for basic elevation changes. We're not actually doing a topo scan off this, but we can get some idea of what our vertical change is by doing a vertical scan and just internally doing a point-to-point measurement.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I just want to show what that looks like in practice. So this is a small commercial space. This is the floor plan that we drafted. As you can see, it has an open ceiling up top with joists. What we did then is create vertical scans front to back and side to side. So one of the profiles went up here from this hallway. You can see through the door there, all the way through to the bottom of the building, and the other sliced it side to side.
Hmm.
So when I go through that, this is actually the outcome, and this is what John's data probably would have looked like as well.
Hmm.
So here I'm out in the hallway of the building. I'm hitting the short little drop ceiling there. I'm then going through the doorway, and you can see how that drops down, hits the doorway, and then up to the joist. I can see that each member is articulated here, so I can get underside of joist and the underside of deck height. And you can see that as I work my way through that building, I just did a straight line through. You can see straight through all the doors.
Mhm.
It's actually capturing all of that elevation data. And that's what our drafting team uses to build out the 3D models. And if you organize it like this in Stitch, you'll actually get this vertical point cloud data that you can then do some dimensions off of. And in this particular case, I went right outside. So I went outside, got the door, got the signage, got that height of the building, and worked my way all the way through. So just to articulate, it is hard to see at first, but when you see it all come together and you can see how it actually builds that building slice or the floor plan in the vertical section, you can see the value that that brings.
That's cool. I've never considered the value of the straight line that comes in there. That's learning for our end too.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. So we have a few more minutes here. I want to make sure we talk through. Nate, you talked about the expiry. Um, One thing you should be doing, Nate, is downloading that offline iGUIDE. I don't know, John, if you store those or grab those, but in the deliverable packages, if you go to Edit iGUIDE Details on the bottom left, it shows your offline iGUIDE folder. I would download that every time. It is a self-contained 3D tour. You don't need the internet and you don't need iGUIDE to open that in the future, and you can store it locally. So it's a self-contained folder. You click the link and it opens up the 3D viewer there, and it's available to you forever. We can extend the online viewer. Reach out to us and we can kind of discuss the use case and when that's possible. And then Tara, I'm hoping that some of that Stitch stuff helped you, but I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there about incorporating the Stitch data to fill gaps. The one thing that I would do is to, and someone asked this earlier, is how do I maximize the output, the CAD output that you're getting based on your capture data? Making sure it's aligned and tight and complete is the best way to get the best output. High quality data in, you get high quality data coming out, and there's no interpretation that needs to be made. So, making sure your data is aligned and clean and organized is the best way to get a highly reliable output. Yes, we'll probably make the recording available and the slides. We can make sure. One thing I didn't say at the beginning too is if anyone has any questions at the end or needs a follow-up call, I'm always available. Reach out to me. We'll show the email as we go. Um, I was remembering, this is Brian here, that too many scans can actually muddy the point cloud data. Um, is it better to overlapping scans the sweet spot? So no matter what, we want overlapping LiDAR data when mapping a floor plan. That's the sweet spot. Our system actually restricts from a viewer perspective panels that are too close together. So from a viewer, they need to be, I think it's a couple feet apart. It's like half a meter apart to do that. Um, from a LiDAR perspective, though, it doesn't matter. As long as the data is organized and clean together, it's just a higher density point cloud. Please don't go above and beyond. I think from your perspective, you have to be efficient on site. You can't spend all day capturing and taking a million scans. It's about finding the right balance for what the use case is. But typically, the scan density every, 8 to 10 feet interior is ideal. When you're doing vertical scans every 15 feet, if you're doing a slice, it usually gets the profiles. But what's important and what John showed in his is like there was bulkheads and drops and rises. Same idea with the floor plan. You want to make sure you capture those to get all in and out of them. Straight line verticals, Jeremy Jones. You have to be careful to also keep the camera oriented the same way. Um,
Hmm.
No, you can't mirror the stitch data. It's on my list of requests. So what that is when you're doing this the straight line of vertical data, and make John, this is feedback for you too.
Yeah.
If your Planix, it's going to be on its side. You want it always facing the same directions, let's say east. So perpendicular to the line that you're trying to capture, but always facing the same way. If you flip the orientation, then the LiDAR gets flipped.
Mm,
And then it doesn't align nicely in Stitch.
yeah.
So always keep it oriented the same way. So it's always pointing, say, towards a single wall or east. That's actually a really good point, Jeremy. Pro tip.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, tax analysis and Donald, we'll take that one offline and we can make sure we address and get you what you need. Um, so Nate, you were asking about Radix scans. So yes, different levels of scans have different pricing. An iGUIDE goes based off drafted square foot, but a Radix goes by scan count. That's where you're not getting a drafted floor plan deliverable, but it's an automated outcome. So just note that, make sure your data is aligned and tight because exactly how you submit it is exactly how it's going to be drafted out. It is a good application for construction update shots. John, I know you mentioned you use the drafted floor plan. It has a really tight user experience and it's easy to navigate.
Mhm.
But if you're doing a lot of them or if it's a large project, a Radix does the bill as well. And you can even have construction meetings on it. If John's not on site, he can go through that Radix or the iGUIDE and get orientation and walk through it. So
Yeah.
it's per 75 scans. Place the scanner and run it, or is it each building? So 75 scans, and it's just based on scan count. Doesn't matter the buildings, the rooms, the floors. It's based on the pure count that you're submitting. And
That's a
Spence,
fun use case we had when I was out of town. We had the team sent me a video of a question in the field, and they did the 75. I think they did like 5 scans and just uploaded it because it was ready, and I was able to look around instead of directing my guys, go this way, go here. They sent me the scan, and I was able to view it remotely.
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Couple questions. Spencer, you asked about adjusting when you adjust and stitch. Sometimes the drafters may modify that. Um, for them, it's probably based on their interpretation of the data, trying to maximize the outcome. They would have done it for a reason. I understand some of the frustration if it's submitted. We can work with that on a case by case basis, or you send us a note. Maybe they don't see something that you knew on site and that adjusted it. But if they're adjusting it, it's to optimize alignment. They always are making tweaks, especially floor to floor alignments. So just note that that's happening for the best outcome possible, and they have different ways of looking at that LiDAR data and processing it, and really great tools to adjust. Bernard, you were asking about stitching vertical scans. If depending on the situation, you're right, it's sometimes really hard to get them aligned, especially if they don't have common interfaces that they're bouncing off of. Um, get them as organized as possible. You can either separate them out on floors, or what some pros do is each scan is in a different spot. So you just drag each scan out on its own, so it's easier for the team to interpret. What some people do, which is a nightmare, is just keep capturing all vertical scans. It all appears on one spot, and if you looked at it in Stitch, it's just a spider nest. That's not how you get the best outcome or the fastest turnaround time. So if you keep them organized and clean, you'll get the best outcome and the best turnaround time. Yes, Donald, the if anyone's listening, if you want to bring me an R1, that would be sweet. But when you're capturing the vertical data with the Planix on its side, it orientates the side profile. So if I share my screen again, and this is a bit in the weeds, so this is why we could take it offline here, but just very quickly. So here is a capture here. Look at Greg's coming. Love it. This is, thank you so much, Greg. This is the a scan, right? So that was within, it's all aligned. This is the scan out. If I would have flipped the orientation of my camera, essentially it just mirrors that on the vertical axis. So it would actually, it wouldn't be flipped this way. That would be if you tilted the camera from, I don't know if you can see me at the same time, from here to here, it flips it from right side up to upside down. But if you turn it from here to here as you're scanning through that pass,
Yeah.
it actually is just flipping the image. So the staircase would be like appearing on the other direction. It's hard to articulate, but I'm happy to show you in practice kind of what that looks like. So if the image was hard, the vertical scans are done when it's on its side. And the reason we do that is because the LiDAR is in the middle. When we do it like this, it interacts with the ceiling and the floor. and you want to go in the same orientation as you work through your building. You do not want to capture this way and then flip the tripod over, capture this way, and then capture this way, as that's the LiDAR data flips and flops. Um, yeah, so a couple more minutes here. Leroy, haven't heard of you before. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome. Could Survey and Stitch be updated so that the views of the vertical scans are rotated, making it easier to view? Really great question. So
Maybe
this is what I do,
busyness.
and I'm going to use Stitch again because that's the best way to articulate it. So what Leroy is saying is typical. When you take your first scan in vertical, same with your floor plan, the orientation could be all messed up. So it could be just off like that. What I always do is I align my first scan, and now that Chris White and the data acquisition team allows you to rotate all scans, which is amazing, but I always do it off the first. I orientate it so the ground is always down and the roof is always up. That way, as I build my next scans, I'm going to pull the next one up. It's easier for me to visualize what that looks like. And I have other scans pulling it down. So then it's building it and I can see where I'm going. I can see the floor is flat and it helps me see what I've captured in the ceiling. So I would always coach, align that first scan. The floor is always down, the ceiling's always up. And then as you build, it's a lot easier to see what's going on. Um, is the accuracy the same as I order a Radix and then use the same file to order a drafted plan later? So, Trey, that's a really good question. When we draft a Radix, it's exactly as you sent it to us. It is, I couldn't tell you the accuracy behind that. It's accurate to what's submitted. But when you upgrade that or update it, our team will be fine tuning the alignment to make sure everything is best possible outcome. So it could be different than what you're seeing in your point cloud data. Um, and then, yeah, Donald, this is what I wanted everyone to understand. Let everyone just be flipped. Yeah, perfect. There's some Q&A questions. Um, is there a way to send the iGUIDE scan to different trade partners without them having to make an account and view it? Great question. So protected view or not, and you can make it public or not. So when you order an iGUIDE under the AEC industry, no matter what, it's not indexable or searchable through Google. So if you used RRE, it's public. We use the address as the URL, and it's searchable for a reason because that's the use case of the RE um, the residential real estate concept. But when you're using construction or insurance, we actually use an alphanumeric string. It's not indexable, it's not searchable. And unless they have the link, it's really hard for them to find that key. So what happens and why other people can't view it is it might be protected. So if you have a protected iGUIDE, it requires you to put their email in. They have to log in and view the iGUIDE. If you take that protection off, and then share this during anyone can open it. So if you're passing it around in an email, if you're going to subs or subcontractors and you're sending out the link, if you have it unprotected, anyone with that link can view it, and it's still not indexable or searchable by any of the search engines. So that's a really good question, Mike.
That's what we do. We turn off the protection when we share to subs, especially for bids. It's very easy in that way.
Yeah. I see another question here. Lighter precons, build conditions. Good feedback, Anthony. I'll unpack that and I'll look at that in a second. Sometimes I'm getting an error if the scans are too close. So when you're submitting, if you're not submitting directly from an R1 or on site, um, if you're going through Stitch, it'll say if it's too close.
Mhm.
But it shouldn't give you a warning when you're capturing on site. It should just consume that data that you're capturing. If you capture on the R1, it automatically is hiding the scans for you that are too close. And then you can, in the portal, you can choose what you show and don't show from a customer perspective. But it shouldn't block you.
And I
Um,
set the tripod base basically as my measurement. If the spread of the legs on the tripod's about 3 feet, then I'm moving, the center point 3 feet over as my tripod kind of field measurement.
So I'm wondering, Anthony, if you're getting that warning on upload. In that case, if you're in Stitch, you just have to hide some of the scans.
Yep. And they'll typically highlight red, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. If you get the warning and then you look at it, it should highlight the scans that you need to hide. That's exactly what I would do. But if you use the R1, we automatically do it for you. And if you upload from site. Is there a way to send the iGUIDE scan to different trade partners? Yeah, okay. Perfect. Got it. Any other questions that are coming in? Misha, Tash, or anyone else? But I mean, yeah, you stitch and survey automatically. That's a good suggestion. Maybe it's something in the pipe, Leroy.
Oh, yeah.
Anything to make it easier to capture. I think that's the biggest thing, or reduce errors, or give you guys the best outcomes, are all things we're always considering. Our job and my job is always to make sure you're armed with knowing. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got, even hearing John talk about how he lowers it, is know what it's being used for. And that way you're making sure you're going to be capturing the right data on site for the end deliverables that are going to be made. So if you need the curve of that counter, make sure we have LiDAR on it, and then our drafting team can be a lot more accurate in placing that object. And good thing to say is like fixtures and furniture within our deliverables, technically are generic blocks paste like for visual representation only, but we do the best we can to place them and size them correctly. So if you do need them, and if it's a critical dimension, obviously you should be measuring on site and updating and validating to make sure those placements are correct. Maybe this last one here, and then we'll sign off. But once scanning is done and we have requested the CAD files, that's a loaded question. I think it's a really good one. So all of our SLAs are listed on our website. It does have ebbs and flows. I'll be the first one to admit it, and I'm sure John, you've seen it as well too. There's times where a 3D model can be turned around within 72 hours, even if it's more complex or larger. But realistically, we typically say the iGUIDE within 24 hours. We see a DWG within the next 24 hours, so 48 total. Obviously, if it's a larger or more complex building, that changes. The Revit model is about 3 to 5 days after the iGUIDE. So the iGUIDE gets processed, and that's the springboard into the other deliverables for us. Um, but it does have ebbs and flows. Complexity does matter. If you guys know projects are coming ahead of time, and definitely more complex ones, reach out to our support team and we can help and make sure that it's on the queue. Things do come in, first out. But if you have important projects and tight timelines within our standards, we want to hear about them and we want to make sure you hit them. And we can also let you know what our queues are looking like on our side. So if we do know a delay is coming, or it's going to be close to the end of the 5 days and you're hoping that it was closer to the 3 days, let us know and let's talk. I think one thing we do care about is being partners. We want you to be successful. We're stakeholders in your business. We know that we have to deliver for you so you guys can deliver for your customers and it makes sense. So we do really care. So typically the SLAs do vary. iGUIDE is within 24, DWG within 48, Revit within 72 hours to 5 days, so 3 to 5 days. And then we are coming out with large building SLAs. That's the next thing we're working on with a large building pricing model, hopefully. So a 30,000 square foot building also loaded. If it's a warehouse, that's a quicker turnaround. If it's a hospital, that's a whole different story. So typically under 10,000 square feet is kind of our standard deliverables, and above and beyond that is more complex. So it could take a couple weeks depending on the project, to be honest, or it could sometimes fall within our window or a couple days after. It really does depend. Awesome. We'll cut it off there. We're right on time. John, thank you so much for taking time
Thank
out of your
you.
day coming and providing context and practical expertise. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sorry for
Okay.
my disconnect issue,
I
but
love
thank you for
that. No,
having
it was
me.
great. It's real.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye now.